Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
November 9, 1989. Communist states around the world are collapsing, and so is the Berlin Wall. Years of fighting and hatred are coming to an end, and freedom has prevailed. Who helped win this victory, and what was his life like? In a second-floor Illinois apartment on a cool winter evening in 1911, Jack and Nell Reagan had a son. They named him Ronald, though to most people he was simply Dutch Reagan. His family moved around Illinois from town to town until they finally settled in Dixon. Young Reagan was opposed to racism, which at the time was very unusual. Reagan recalled a time when an inn wouldn't let a group of African Americans in, so he and his mother let them stay the night in their home. Dutch soon got a job as a lifeguard on the Rock River, where he reportedly made 77 rescues. Reagan went on to attend Eureka College. He majored in economics and sociology and got a spot as a cheerleader. He was also a member of the football team, captain of the swim team, and was elected student body president. Also of note is that he started a revolt against the college president when he decided to cut back on faculty. After college, Ronald drove to Iowa, where he began looking for work. He auditioned at multiple radio stations before the University of Iowa hired him to announce for their football team, the Hawkeyes. He worked his way up until he got a job as announcer for the Chicago Cubs and was known for great play-by-plays. While traveling in California with the Cubs in 1937, Reagan took a screen test and got a 7-year contract with Warner Brothers. He starred in the film Love is on the Air, and from there he began a career, notably starring in Newt Rockney, where he got the nickname the Jipper, and in Bedtime for Bonzo, which became popular after he became president. In 1949, Reagan was contacted by actress Nancy Davis, who wanted help. She had been mistaken for another Nancy Davis, who was on a communist blacklist in Hollywood. When they met in person, they immediately took a liking for each other. Nancy later said, quote, "I don't know if it was love at first sight, but it was pretty close." They married in 1952 with actor William Holden as best man, and had 2 children, Patty and Ron. In 1966, after a popular speech he made for Barry Goldwater gained fame around the nation, Reagan announced he would run for governor of California. He won the Republican primary and emphasized 2 main goals, quote, to put the welfare bums back to work and to clean up the mess at Berkeley. He won, defeating incumbent Edmund Brown, and soon won a second term. He unsuccessfully ran for president in 1976, losing the Republican nomination to Gerald Ford, who in turn was defeated by Jimmy Carter. However, after Carter's first term, Reagan tried again, winning with 489 electoral votes and 50% of the popular vote. He was inaugurated January 20th, 1981, making his famous quote, "Government is not the solution to our problem, the government is our problem." On March 30, 1981, 69 days into Reagan's first term, Dutch was shot outside the Washington Hilton Hotel by John Hinckley, Jr. The bullet lodged an inch from his heart, and he was near death by the time he got to the hospital. Luckily, he recovered, and on April 11th he was released, much to the joy of the American people. Reagan explained, quote, "I just forgot to duck." During his first term, Reagan began to be tougher on the Soviet Union, producing the MX missile, reviving the B-1 Lancer program, and building up the U.S. Army. Reagan made it clear that he would not tolerate the Soviet abuse of human rights, calling them an evil empire and, quote, "another sad, bizarre chapter in human history." After the Soviets shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007 when it flew into prohibited airspace, President Reagan called the event a massacre and announced making the GPS technology public to avoid future mishaps. In March 1983, Reagan announced the Strategic Defense Initiative, a defense system that would employ anti-nuke devices in outer space. Reagan believed that the system could prevent nuclear war and effectively end the Cold War. This may have turned out to be true, however, the program was impossible to test and was nicknamed Star Wars by the media. The Strategic Defense Initiative never went into action. On October 25, 1983, Dutch commanded an invasion of Grenada, where a communist government had taken over 4 years before. Hundreds of American medical students in Grenada were in danger, and the U.S. had little choice but to act and overthrow the communists, establishing a new government in mid-December. 1 week after Reagan's second inauguration in 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded and killed all 7 people aboard. Reagan addressed the people on the night of the disaster, proclaiming, "The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted, it belongs to the brave." Dutch and his wife Nancy soon began a campaign they called the War on Drugs, better known as the Just Say No program. Nancy traveled the country making speeches and holding rallies in an effort to stop drug abuse. Though the program didn't end it altogether, drug use among students dropped heavily during the campaign. In 1986, details came out that the Reagan administration had been using money from covert arms sales to fund the Contras, an anti-communist resistance force in Nicaragua. This was illegal, and the president claimed no knowledge of the scandal. His approval rating dropped hugely, and debate still goes on today about whether he knew of the whole affair, as well as whether he was justified in funding the Contras. During the Reagan administration, many Americans believed that the Soviet Union was ahead of us in the Cold War. This may have been true, however, their communist ideology began to cause an economic collapse in their nation. Their new leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, began a policy of openness and negotiation towards Reagan. They began meeting at summits. Reagan believed, however, that Gorbachev was still not doing quite enough. At the Brandenburg Gate of the Berlin Wall on June 12, 1987, he challenged Gorbachev to, quote, "tear down this wall." 2 years later, in 1989, the wall was torn down, and 2 years after that, the Soviet Union itself collapsed. In August 1994, long after his presidency had come to an end, Reagan was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and on June 5, 2004, he died of pneumonia complicated by Alzheimer's. He was given a state funeral and was buried under the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. Reagan is today recognized for who he was, an American icon, a good president, and a great man.